Over the last decade, we have seen social media grow rapidly in importance. In fact, social network penetration is constantly increasing worldwide, and as of January this year, it stood at 49%. Thanks to this rapidly increasing usage, common people who were earlier deprived of a platform to showcase their talent are now enjoying a celebrity like aura. Yes, I'm talking about social media influencers. These are people who have built a certain kind of reputation for their knowledge and expertise in a specific niche. They post regular content on their preferred social media networks and attract a large audience who inevitably look up to these people for decision making. As people are more inclined towards using social media, they connect better with social media influencers than celebrities. It is easier for people to connect with them as influencers make an effort to have regular, open, and direct communication with their followers. Influencers are better appreciated by the audience as they come across more genuine and accessible. However, influencer marketing is a highly competitive field. For every one category, there are thousands of content creators and influencers. Since it is an ever-growing field, it becomes imperative to stand out in the crowd and make a mark. Otherwise, you will just be another fish in the ocean. Hello everyone, you're listening to the Socially Desi Show, the podcast that motivates you to live, create and inspire. If this is your first time here, welcome. On our show, we discuss tips and strategies with our guest speakers on how to tackle problems related to personal growth, mental health, relationships, entrepreneurship and health and fitness. So hit that subscribe button and go check out our website at sociallydesi.com for more of such content. Today, I'm joined by Aikum. She's the co-founder and CEO of Entrepreneur.in. Entrepreneur is an online media channel focusing on entrepreneurial content under the fashion and beauty umbrellas. Hello Aikum, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Anurag. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be hosting you on the show today, Aikum. And I still remember last month when we connected on Instagram and we exchanged a couple of DMs. And then when I went on Entrepreneur.in, it was a lovely website and I really liked the kind of content that your team and you were curating for the fashion space.
Right.
It was like really well put out. And so, that got me interested. And then after we spoke a couple of times, we thought of doing this episode. So to our audience, why don't you tell your journey, your whole idea behind starting the business?
Sure. So Entrepreneur basically is an idea that stemmed from the fact that there was a large gap in the Indian market for fashion business and beauty business content. So if you look at fashion content in India, you can read a lot about styling fashion or what is happening in the fashion industry, but actually to understand what's happening behind the scenes, which is the business of fashion in India, you actually don't have a lot of content there.
True.
So if you actually look at international content sites or magazines or companies that are actually working towards providing content for these consumers, there's a lot of content to consume. There's a lot of written content, there's a lot of video content, there's a lot of podcasts that go around.
Yeah.
But in India, it's hard to find that, and even if you do find that, it's more about the bigger retail part of fashion. It's not really about the emerging designers or the seasoned designers or what fashion really encapsulates in India.
Right.
So honestly, we wanted to sort of just dig deeper into this narrative and understand what is really happening in the business of fashion today. Because if tomorrow somebody wants to get up and start a new business, they want to log on to a new website and actually find out more about that, as in like how to start a business or, where do you source from or, who are your investors? It's really hard to find that kind of stuff.
True. Yeah.
So our idea is to basically dig really deep into this narrative, fish out a lot of researched content, do a lot of value-based content on our website to give these young entrepreneurs information that they could use to build and grow in this industry. So that was the major idea behind Entrepreneur, basically.
Yeah, that's really interesting because in India, if you see, there are a few organizations who are focused on entrepreneurship. But when you talk about entrepreneurship, it was very mixed. So there was no specific website or a platform where somebody who is interested to be a fashion designer or maybe wants to start his or her own brand. I don't think there.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was no such platform where they can dedicatedly find their content on. Otherwise, you have to
Hmm.
find information which is scattered all over the place.
Yes, yes. And most of that information is quite dated, to be honest. I mean, the
Hmm.
kind of tools and skills you need in today's time and, era is very different from the kind of content you actually find. It's quite dated. It's about how maybe a Sabyasachi built his business, which was like 10 to 20 years ago. You
Right.
know, the landscape has changed entirely. It's a digital world. There are so many new things happening. And at Entrepreneur, we address all these issues from like a digital transformation to, micro communities to micro influencers. So you have to be really up to date, especially for an industry like fashion. There is so much you need to learn to actually grow, and that was missing, So I think that really fueled us to put our heads together and do something which could be valuable.
And how do you keep up to this? How do you keep up to the trends and the latest happening in the fashion world?
So me and my co-founders, and we're a team of six now. It's
Okay.
been about like 3 months.
Hmm.
We've grown to a team of six. We are constantly reading. We're all very avid readers. We are always, updated as to what's happening internationally. Okay, now New York Fashion Week's happening. We know what's happening. We know what's happening in India. We know what's happening locally. So I think you need to sort of go that extra mile to make the effort to actually know what's happening. And of course, today everything is available to you online. You just have to subscribe to a few good magazines or, portals, and you get all the news and all the updates of the world. So I think it's important to just be aware of the fact that you need to go the extra mile and be aware of these things. So,
Right, that's true. That's true.
yeah.
And what was your journey like before Entrepreneur? What were you doing before that?
Right. So basically, I have a master's in international fashion business, and I
Okay.
studied in Italy for about a year.
Hmm.
Post that, I came to Bombay and I was working in content strategy, in fact,
Okay.
for about a year in Bombay. Post which, I moved back home to Chandigarh, which is my hometown,
Hmm.
and I started a gifting startup
Okay.
for about 8 months. I ran that. I was also doing content on the side while I was running this startup. And so I have been quite familiar in this space, especially fashion, luxury, and retail. I was also freelancing for a while. So when you're in this field and you're working hard and you're spending so much time, you tend to sort of realize the loopholes or gaps or looming problems that exist in the industry.
Yeah.
So that's where I sort of learned a lot. I learned copywriting. I learned what good content is. I understood how businesses worked with content and how content was actually king,
Hmm.
today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that was my journey, and of course, I've been in fashion for almost my entire life. It's always been something I've been very, very passionate about and very keen on. I've always been, going out of my way to, either look good or
Hmm.
like know what's trending or read the latest magazine. So that's how it's been basically.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. And tell me something. Your journey from Italy to Bombay to back to Chandigarh. Starting a couple
Yeah,
of businesses, working from for other companies.
right.
What was the number one learning from all your experience and from your failures? What is
Hmm.
that number one learning that you still remember?
I think my number one learning would be whichever field you choose to start up in or start a business in or even work in. Firstly, be very diligent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Whatever you're doing, give it your level best and never do anything half-heartedly. I think when even if it's just a small business or a small project you're doing, even if you started half-heartedly, you're already a failure, you know.
True.
um so I think these two things were like something really important that stuck with me. And of course, the biggest lesson I learned in business, running my previous startup, was resilience and persistence. Whatever idea you might have, whatever business you start, you always do it with a knowing mind. You do your research, of course, you do your due diligence,
Yeah.
but you have to understand that the business will not take off in 4 months or 6 months or 8 months, right?
Yeah.
Doing something, putting in your heart and your soul and your sweat and your tears, it will take a while to grow, you know.
So true.
So I think a big mistake a lot of us make in life is just to give up early, I feel.
Hmm.
uh, because I feel like all of us at some point have $1 million idea, you
True.
know.
Yeah.
I think all of us, because everybody thinks, and we're also aware these days. I feel like at least all of us would have had at least $1 million idea, you know. So, just be diligent about what you're doing, research well, and of course, just be persistent and build resilience for life, for work, for business. So, my biggest learning was to just be really persistent in the quality you put in, and of course, the kind of emotions you're feeling, or you want to give up or something. Just be persistent. So that was my biggest learning.
That's a perfect learning, that because the thing is that a lot of us we romanticize with our business so much sometimes that
Yes.
we forget
Yes.
the real reason why you started that and what it takes to actually grow that business from nothing to something.
Right. We also romanticize startups these days, I feel like, because it's just so accessible to us.
Hmm.
Running a business is not a joke, right? Like, I feel like we also have romanticized the idea of just having our own business or starting our own business just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine to be in a job that you like, or, doing something which is not a business and is just, maybe if you're a teacher or a coach, or, you have a decently paying job, it's all right. No, all of us don't have to be entrepreneurs,
True.
you
Yeah.
know. You should only do something if you truly feel passionate about something, or you really feel like it's a great idea. Because I feel like every second person today just wants to wake up and be like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. It
Yeah.
doesn't work like that. There is so much that goes into it. I feel like all of us should do that introspection and actually understand if that's the path we want to work on.
So
you know
true. I mean, see,
Hmm.
entrepreneurship is like it's loosely packed these days. Like
Right.
everyone thinks that they understand what it is. But to me, it's like, if let's say you have a manager working in a company, he can also be an entrepreneur inside the company itself. I mean,
Exactly.
if he
Yes.
is, doing something innovative in his company to bring in sales or
Right.
maybe achieve those targets, and the way he is developing his team, I mean, he's an entrepreneur himself. I mean,
Hmm.
he doesn't have to go ahead and register a new company just to showcase that. I mean,
Right.
he can do
Right.
that while working from some other company. So a lot of people, I guess, they have this wrong perception behind their mind that for me to become an entrepreneur, I actually have to leave my current job and start something new. I mean, of course, if you have something in your mind, like you said, if you have $1 million idea in your mind, you need to plan it out.
Right.
Because
Correct.
without planning, just dreaming about being Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos won't help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you also need to know the struggle that comes with it, because
Hmm.
it's not easy,
Yeah, true. I
you know?
mean, you don't get that paycheck, notification at the end of the month.
Exactly. You might even be broke for months,
या तो पैसे जा ही
you
रहे
know?
होते हैं जेब से.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's like a bitter truth, or like maybe like, something that people need to also know about entrepreneurship,
Hmm.
like that, this is also a side of the coin. So yeah.
So true, so true. Now, coming back to
Yes.
our main point of the day, Aikum,
Yeah.
how do you see fashion startups and fashion designers using social media to have a better reach and engagement? How are they using social media for their own businesses?
Well, fashion is such a thing these days that it needs to be on Instagram. I feel like fashion, lifestyle, aesthetic things, Instagram is all about it.
Yeah, anything
Your
visual.
flatly, exactly, visually appealing stuff, it has to be on Instagram. So I feel like they are using it very well,
Hmm.
because everybody, it's a visual medium, right? So all your, creativity, all your art direction, all your campaigns are right there, right?
Yep.
And of course, like, everybody's also using influencers these days, but of course, we'll come to that later.
Yeah.
I do feel it's being used very well
Mm-hmm.
for, and of course, whether it's a small business or whether it's a large business, whether it's a homegrown brand, it's easily accessible as well. So it's very easy to just put out your work. So I feel like Instagram and Facebook do give these businesses a very good platform to sort of portray their brands on. So I think they're using it quite well. Yeah.
But then, do you think that the reach and the engagement on Instagram specifically has become more difficult in the last couple of years?
Um, I would say yes, because firstly, like, you never know what the Instagram algorithm is,
Hmm.
first of all, right? And secondly, of course, with all these new bloggers and influencers coming in, it's becoming harder each day to actually understand which blogger really has the power to influence your target group. you
Yeah.
know Even though if somebody has, say, like a 50,000 followers, what is the actual reach, and are people actually listening to that person for the product you're selling?
Hmm.
So that's an entirely different ball game altogether. Um, but when it comes to reach or impressions, I would say that it really depends on the kind of TG you have,
Hmm. Hmm.
the kind of, if it's like a fashion brand, or if it's like a accessory brand, or like the kind of people you're sort of promoting it through, advertising it through. So it's all very, very subjective. um, but honestly, like, the reach has become less now because Instagram is making it harder for creatives to put out their work.
Yeah.
So brands are trying twice as hard and spending twice the amount of money they used to
Hmm.
on, maybe on campaigns or influencers. So I would say it's become harder, lately. So brands really need to start strategizing better in terms of the channels they're marketing through, basically.
Yeah, that's a very good key point. When it comes
Right.
to marketing on social media, especially on Instagram, the kind of reach that you're targeting, I guess all these brands, they need to do their homework really well, because, like you said, right, people are now spending almost twice the amount what they were spending back in 2018 or 17.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's getting really tough. And, coming to this point, the word influencer, within air quotes, I'm like actually quoting it. So,
Right.
what's the big misconception behind this? What actually, who would you call an influencer?
The word has been so loosely thrown around lately that it's so hard to actually define who an influencer is today.
Hmm.
So we have your bloggers, we have your influencers, and we have your creators. But when it comes to influencer, firstly, I think all of us should sit down for 2 seconds and actually think, what do we want them to influence? Right?
Yeah.
Because in this day and age, it's just so easy to put out something that people won't even think twice about. So we need to honestly understand who these people are. Are they people who have done something in their lives, who have achieved something in their lives, and people actually look up to them as beacons of, inspiration? Or are they just bloggers or fashion bloggers who have garnered such traction and reach over the years that we're now calling them influencers only because of their following?
Hmm.
So where do we draw the line? What is our take on influencers? I feel like people need to have that conversation these days, because being a fashion blogger is very different from being a sustainability influencer who lives her life in a very, very sustainable way. She wakes up in the morning, she takes a shower in cold water, she buys less, she grows her own vegetables. So that would be an influencer, somebody who has actually achieved something substantial, or does, or supports a lifestyle that means something to somebody. Whereas a fashion blogger or just a blogger is somebody who I mean, it's fashion, so it's completely separate.
So they're basically enthusiasts.
Yes, and there are so many fashion bloggers I feel today, which is great. I really support that. I support everybody should be doing whatever they want to. But influencing is a power that we shouldn't be giving to every person.
Yeah.
I feel like the more we are reading these days, the more we are becoming aware of how society is shaping up to be, especially in this digital era. We really need to be more responsible with who we give this power to.
Hmm.
So it's a conversation all of us need to have with ourselves. It's not about marketing or advertising or sales. It's genuinely about thinking before we take a step. And I feel like that thinking part has diminished lately. People aren't thinking so much. They are only posting. They're only, putting out their opinion without actually thinking twice about it. So this is something so important that people need to start imbibing in their lives, just thinking about what they're doing.
So true, so true. And do you think brands are engaging with the right influencers these days?
It's so funny you bring that up because honestly, I keep seeing a lot of fashion influencers talk about sustainability lately,
Yeah.
right? When we talk about fashion, it's the fourth most polluting industry in the world, right? And if you're buying 100 clothes in 6 months, you're really not being sustainable. And a lot of these bloggers promote this lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So when a sustainable brand comes up and they're searching for influencers and they pick out a fashion blogger and they're like, okay, fine, they're going to influence. No, they're not going to influence. They are just going to take your product, put it on their page without even having the same values as your brand, which is so important today.
So true. Yeah.
There is so much confusion. The people, honestly, brands are only looking at that one metric that you have, which is your followers.
That's bad, actually.
And which is sad because I feel like every third influencer today has 50% fake following.
Bacha. Bacha bhai have done
Yeah,
it.
in reference to that event, which was absolutely hilarious because why would he need so much fake following? Like he's already so famous,
That
right?
was the biggest shock for me, because if somebody like Bacha, who already has a genuine following, it's not like he is somebody who just grew up yesterday and he
Exactly.
wants to become big in the industry.
Exactly.
He's already here. He has already made it inside the industry. He's a big name.
Absolutely.
Still, he's spending 72
He's a
bloody
household
lakhs.
name. I think kids know his name now. Every third
Seriously.
person knows who Badshah is.
He was the one who dethroned Honey Singh
Right.
from his. So I mean, for somebody like him to spend 72 lakhs on just one song and to get those fake followers and likes and all that.
Completely ridiculous. It's
Seriously.
completely ridiculous. But power is such a thing. Like I feel like once you have, there's no end to it. And especially this metric, which is our followers today, is just so important today, which is sad. Like it's just a number, right? It does not denote anything else but the number of people following that page. It's so superficial, but it's the truth today, right? We
Yeah.
all judge each other, we judge brands, we judge influencers in air quotes and bloggers on the metric, which is that followers. So yeah, like I said, there's so much confusion today, and people really, the only thing they look at is metrics, which is what a society has made us today.
True.
There is values, although people are starting to be transparent now, but at least in the past few years, there was just so much superficiality in the air, and people were only looking at your socials, your number metrics. That it was. I think it was high time that people started also sort of taking a step back and being like, okay, you know what, this needs to stop. you know so I would say brands need to also think again, like I previously mentioned. They need to think more about who they connect with. These days micro influencers are also on the rise. People with about like 10K followers or lesser, because it's a small knit community, and it's exactly the people who you want to target, instead of reaching out to somebody who has like 100K followers, out of which probably 90K are not even your target. you know so brands need to do that due diligence, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. But talking about this followers and everyone being a fashion influencer and blogger,
Hmm.
there's a big problem right now on Instagram with this whole show skin scenario happening. Right.
Right, right, right,
So
right.
with the TNAs and every model just
Yes.
showing off their skins just to have
Yes.
that eyeballs on their page. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
so what are your advice to brands and these kind of influencers? How do you actually create a genuine following? How do you actually create a genuine campaign for your brand and market it for the audience on Instagram?
That's a really good question because I feel like these Gen Zers, especially, are only looking at very superficial way of attracting audiences, right?
Hmm.
Building a community or building a following will always take you time, and I feel like these kids or in these younger generation, they want it now,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So I feel like it's a shortcut for them where they feel like it's not going to take us time if we do this, or if we show more skin, or if we take such pictures, we will get more followers, which is true, sadly, right? But I feel like these kids also need to understand that building yourself as an influencer or building yourself as a brand will always take time. And of course, the values that you further bring ahead, whether it's a collaboration with a brand, you will only get brands that support this kind of thing, you
Yeah.
know.
Hmm.
Um, so I feel like these younger kids and this younger generation needs to have a little bit of reality check, which I think they're not right now because they live in a very digital world. You know, I myself as a person work with a lot of younger people, like ranging from like 17 to like 21.
Hmm.
They're so engrossed in this world that they feel like this is their reality,
Yeah.
which is, I feel, a very big problem in itself. I think our generation was still lucky enough to have lived that life where we knew that, there's a life beyond computers, a life beyond Instagram. You
So
know,
true.
for
Yeah.
these kids, the buck stops here. Like, this is all there is, you know. So I would feel like the reason for these influencers going forward with skin and, being so physically out there on Instagram. I mean, I support body positivity, but of course, there's a difference between loving your body and, of course, like exploiting it. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah. So I feel like, and I feel like they will learn their lesson as they grow up because the world is very different from what they perceive. And honestly, people should grow out of this mentality now. The world is becoming so much more inclusive. There are so many more things happening. There are so many more interests that you could grow, that you really don't have to be just a half naked model on Instagram.
So
There
true.
has to be
Yeah.
some level of interest or some level of personality that you also bring in. And I feel like that learning only comes through yourself. Like, nobody can tell you, because I have seen people who were this kind of people, were these kind of people, also grow out of it and sort of just be like, okay, yeah, it was a phase. So I feel like for these kids, honestly, the moment they get a reality check of what life really is, that it's not just half naked photos on Instagram and just um, cool photos looking cool on Instagram. Like, there's so much more to it. I think they will understand, and I think it's a self journey. I feel like nobody can tell them. So
Totally. Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean,
yeah,
nobody can tell them, and I don't think so. Anybody should tell them also.
right,
See, the idea is that at the end of the day, if you want to become an influencer or a model,
hmm.
right, you need to have your priorities straight. Like for a brand, like I'll give you a hypothetical example. Like for example, if I want to launch a lipstick,
Right,
let's say, right, and I reach out to these models and influencers, but at the end of the day, if like the model puts out a picture and all I see on the picture is her ass and the lipstick is just at the background showing, like,
right, right,
it doesn't portray my brand the way I want to.
of
So
course,
at the end of the day, as a brand, I will not collaborate with that influencer.
absolutely, of course,
Hannah,
of
because
course.
I would want somebody like an influencer for me, like for a brand.
Hmm.
The influencer is somebody who can influence people through their creatives, through
Correct,
their talent, through whatever they are putting on Instagram. Maybe it's an Instagram reel or a story or a
right,
post,
right,
through which how you're influencing somebody or a girl or a woman to go and buy that lipstick,
hmm.
Right. So that's my target. That's my intention for collaborating with you. But if you
Exactly.
tell me that, I'll have half naked pictures and all, maybe if I'm selling bikinis, then it's fine.
Yeah, of course.
But
Of course.
Hannah, so I think these models and influencers, of course, it's a self journey that they
Hmm.
have to go through and understand what's
Right.
right for them and what's not. But sadly, this is what the state of Instagram is. It's
Hmm.
like turning into this soft porn platform where,
No, I agree. I agree absolutely. But yeah, and I think even brands should be more conscious about who they also collaborate with,
true.
you know, because a lot of brands do also bank on this, that, this person has so much following only because she's half naked or he's half naked,
Yeah.
you know. So I feel like it's a collective responsibility, but for sure, I think people need to sort of introspect and understand what their true values are today,
Yeah.
because there is just so much happening in our lives that if we just ignore something that's terribly wrong, because why does one need to be completely naked on Instagram, right? There's something definitely wrong in their minds, or they're trying to make up for something,
Of
right?
course.
So there are so many things that you could take into account, but definitely, like, it's a looming problem, and I think everybody collectively needs to come together and question each other, like, why.
100%.
If you see your friend doing it, you should probably be like, bro, why are you doing this?
I mean, either you are part of some movement, right? For example, a couple of years
Yeah.
when Free the Nipple movement
Yes.
started,
Yes.
a lot of women started posting their pictures, online. I support that
Exactly.
100%. So
Right. Right.
if you want to support a movement, if you want to be a part of a journey with somebody, support
Hmm.
somebody, then it's fine doing something like that. But just to
Right.
gain followers, just to gain eyeballs on your platform, it's not sustainable. This is
Right.
what I'm trying to say, is that
Not at
yeah,
all.
this
Not at
technique
all.
is not
Right.
sustainable.
Absolutely not. I think people need to, and I think they will also understand this once they start actually collaborating with brands, that it's absolutely not sustainable. Firstly, because there's always the next half naked person you can look at.
Yeah,
Like, it's just how showbiz works. Entertainment works. Like, there is always another person you can always talk to, unless you actually have a value add,
yeah,
you know from any perspective. So if it's just you naked on Instagram, honestly, there is no value add, and it's not going to work out
so
you know
true.
so definitely agree on that. Definitely agree on that.
So it's a
Yeah.
very nice point that you have made, adding a value to your
Yeah.
proposition. So, what's your advice to
Yes.
influencers and digital creators when it comes to providing that or adding that value?
Honestly, because I work so closely with art directors and stylists, the people that actually stand out the most in terms of influencers or bloggers are the people who are actually being genuinely authentic.
Mm-hmm.
It's the kind of work I have not seen before. Sometimes when you look at an influencer's page, you are like, this is so similar to this influencer, this is this blogger.
Yeah,
Because how people work is that they just mimic and imitate each other's styles, right? And that works because everybody is just like consuming the same content and then liking the same content in return,
yeah,
right? The outliers are the ones who actually disrupt this whole system. They say, okay, you know what? I've had enough of this white pastel, theme going on. I want to go completely black,
yeah,
you know and that's where real creativity comes. And, like, honestly, I've been so fortunate in my journey so far that I've actually had the good fortune to collaborate and talk to these people and understand their creative journeys.
mm-hmm.
So my advice would be unabashedly authentic and original. That is the only way to survive in any creative industry, right? If you're copying somebody today, you will be called out tomorrow. It's it's not that hard, you know
Yeah,
so biggest advice is just be you, be authentic. Don't forget your roots. Be proud of where you come from and build on that. I think the most successful people are the ones who are so unapologetic of where they come from, who they are, the things they like. Never conform. I think conformity is the death of creativity.
yeah,
you
true.
know So that would be my advice to young influencers and fashion bloggers and art directors going forward. So yeah, just be you.
So true. But beauty and fashion is such a vast industry.
Right.
How does somebody go and pick a niche for themselves within fashion and beauty?
I mean, uh, honestly, it should come from where you're looking to go in the future. Like if you're a creative person, I would take a fashion,
Hmm.
for example. If you're a very creative person, if you like creating things and like drawing or you like new ideas, then I would say pick design as your career, like fashion design. If you're somebody who likes aesthetics, looking at things, organizing things, you should know your innate skill sets. I mean, if you know yourself, you can choose a better path for yourself. So if you like curating things or organizing things, and you're a very aesthetic person, then I would say get into retail or get into merchandising. You know, and I think all of this comes from also, I think, being self aware and also studying. If you do a course, you understand what you're good at,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? And in beauty, I would say, of course, like as you're growing up, see what you love to do, what gave you most happiness, what you're also good at, right? So if it was like sustainable beauty, if you're passionate about sustainability, then you can get into sustainable beauty,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
And if you're somebody who enjoys the business aspect of things, then you could probably scale it a lot, in terms of getting investors or building a business. So I think in the end, everything just boils down to being self aware of the skills you have and what you enjoy the most. So you should just draw a Venn diagram, and wherever that intersects is where you should, build a career in, basically.
And that would also give you some sort of a leeway into
Hmm.
promoting yourself on social media platforms, and coming out as an expert rather than just being a content developer on these platforms.
Absolutely. 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 I mean, it's a different thing. So fashion business is different, influencers are different, bloggers are different. Pick your niche,
Yeah.
and just follow it and build a career, spend time in it. Don't pivot just 3 months down the line. Things
Yeah.
take time, you know, and you have to build yourself. And the word build is such that, it's a process,
Hmm.
so it takes time. So whatever you do, just do it well and take time and be an expert in that field, anything that you do.
And how does somebody collaborate with their favorite brands? Because right now, what I see on social media is that a lot of people, they just DM the brands and they just try to get those barter system in, so that they get something from the
Right.
brand and they post it on Instagram. But I don't think so. That's
Right.
a very sustainable model. So what's your advice on doing collaborations with brands?
I mean, that is so subjective, I feel, because when you're a young brand, you're a startup, you really don't have anything to give somebody instead of barter
Hmm.
collaborations, right?
Hmm.
But as you go forward and you build a following, then you could probably also offer them something, whether it's monetary exchange or anything else, that your
Hmm.
brand's USP is, so I feel like it depends a lot on where in the trajectory of your business's life you're at,
Hmm.
you know but for younger businesses, I feel like it's always good to just collaborate in a barter basis, because um, a lot of these entrepreneurs also, and these brands are also on the same, what do you call it,
The same boat.
level as you
Yeah.
are. Yeah, sometimes, and as you go forward, of course, you need to understand what you can offer to larger collaborations, like bigger influencers or bigger brands.
Hmm.
So I think it's a journey, yeah, and it's very subjective. But of course, my advice for younger people would be to just DM them, or or build a brand or build a presence that people want to come to you to collaborate.
Right,
You know,
right.
do something so different that people are DMing you, or PR agencies are actually emailing you to be that person they want to collaborate with. So yeah, there are so many ways to do it. Yeah, just be the best at what you do. Work hard. I think.
No, I guess, that's the number one thing because there's no shortcut to this.
Right.
And everybody has to work hard. I mean,
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, like at the start of the episode, I said that whatever you do, right, there's
Yes.
so much competition right now in the influencer space and in the brand space.
Correct.
That everybody is fighting for your eyeballs. Everybody is fighting for your attention.
Right.
So, I mean, as consumer, like I see like I'm on Instagram almost like 2 to 3 hours every day. So I know when I see those sponsored ads and some ads which are not curated properly, I just like feel like, oh, this is like a waste of money for these guys because they've.
For sure.
So I think. For brands, especially when they want to collaborate with influencers, they need to figure out, like you said, the target audience that they're
Right.
targeting and the value that they want to provide. Because at the end of the day, if your influencer is not able to, be in line with your vision,
Right.
then your whole campaign will just go south.
And honestly, I feel like today, especially in 2020, people are so smart. They're not ignorant. They can't be fooled. You have to build relationships with people if you want to sell something to them.
Yeah.
People are not the same they used to be. They know exactly what they're buying into. So values have become such an important part of this whole cycle of selling.
So true.
So I feel brands need to be smarter about who they collaborate with, what channels they're marketing through, what is the communication that's going out. So a lot of things that needs, and honestly, they need to be honest and transparent about their own selves as well, because nobody can, I think, tolerate lies anymore. Nobody can tolerate greenwashing anymore. People are so smart; they know everything. So that is also something that brands need to keep in mind before they do any campaigns or any marketing of any sorts.
Yeah, I mean, scamming doesn't work these days. Now, people are
absolutely
smart enough to know.
Absolutely no. Yeah.
So with that, thank you very much, Aikum, for coming on the show. It was lovely having you here. And I'm sure to everyone listening out there, they must have gained a lot of insights from you, especially if you're a brand or if you're an influencer. I'm sure you must have gained really, really good points from this episode. So thank you, Aikum. Thank you once again.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Anurag. Thank you so much for having me here. And I really hope my advice helps even one person, So thank you so much. Thank you.
So that wraps it up for today, folks. If you liked the episode, give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and let's go viral. Remember, our weekly podcast features episodes on personal growth, mental health, relationships, business and entrepreneurship, and health and fitness. We would love to have Aikum on our show again in the future to discuss more about the world of fashion. So if you haven't yet done so, hit that subscribe button and go check out our website at sociallydesi.com. And as always, before I sign off, remember, life is black and white and everything in between.